For the first time on the trip, I think it was a 16 plus mile day, I came off the trail feeling like, actually, I feel all right. Right? Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, now I know how this works. It's about equilibrium, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You build up a debt during the day while you're hiking and hiking and hiking. A debt on many different fronts. Some of them mental, some of them physical, but you build up a debt. And then you have a certain number of hours to recover before you start building up more debt. Mm-hmm. If you don't recover as much as you've spent, then the point is you start the next day at a deficit, and that's not sustainable. You'll keep building up that deficit until you can't do it.
Yes.
So that one day I glimpsed this equilibrium, and then that night, as I was falling asleep, my throat started to get so sore that I could barely swallow. And I knew I was about to get sick. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If I had just barely gotten to equilibrium and I'm now about to be sick for who knows how many days, it's done, right? Yeah. I can't do this. And I decided that the only way to find that out was to try and fail. Mm-hmm. And I tried the next day and did not reach equilibrium, but I got close enough that I wasn't going to quit. Mm-hmm. So anyway, the point is the equilibrium is really the thing you have to target. And it's, I think, also in part the reason that there is nothing that you can do with the remainder of the day. So I discovered a quirk for myself. There's sort of a couple different approaches to, you got to get this long hike. Apologies. You got to get this long hike done. You could go slow, suffer less, but for more hours. Or you could go fast, suffer more, and have more recovery time. And that was definitely my preference each and every day, was to get to the recovery point faster and use those hours to get back to equilibrium. So that's not inherently the right way, but...
well, I think in advance of going to, we had our group, which included 8 people. There were never more than 7 people at a time because of the two who came and went at different moments. By advanced planning rather than for reasons of injury. We had talked about, and there were shades for me, memories of prepping for study abroad trips, and it was a very different situation. I wasn't in charge here. I was glad not to be in charge here, but I also didn't have any. We knew all but one of the people participating, but none of us knew everyone, and we hadn't been together in a group like this before. And there was some expectation that, we all start at the same time, we all finish at the same time, we all walk at the same pace. And I had an immediate negative response to that. I thought that's going to be mind numbing and body numbing and impossible, frankly, and it's going to make everyone miserable because you're either altering your pace to accommodate someone else, or that others are altering their pace to accommodate you, and either way, it's not going to be a happy or a healthy situation, and so. Without really an expectation for myself about whether or not I would tend to want to be going faster or slower or in the middle, or, knowing that I would want to sometimes be talking with people. And boys, there's just so much opportunity for deep conversations when you're walking that many hours a day. At the least, I think the shortest day was a 4-hour day, and I think we did an 11-hour day, right? So you're walking for so much of the day, and you get to know people, and things come up that wouldn't come up if you were merely breaking bread, which is another beautifully human way to connect with people. And of course, we all did that as well. You come off the trail, and you all sit down to a meal together, and that's wonderful too. But it's especially the dyadic or triadic conversations on the trail when you're walking at the same pace with someone, and people behind you may be catching up or falling behind. And as long as people aren't falling behind because they cannot continue and need help in order to get to where you're all collectively going, we all were looking out for one another at that level. But if someone wants to go ahead and other people want to stay behind, and there are people all in between, as long as you have a sense of the collective good, there is zero reason to expect everyone to act the same way. So
Especially in this case, it's unnecessary because,
I would say, especially in every case, but
well, the problem is, if this was a backcountry hike, chances of somebody getting off track
fair enough.
is a problem. In this
You
case,
always have someone batting cleanup who knows what they're doing and can make sure to, in a backcountry situation, you do need to have some different established rules.
but in this case, just so people get the picture, the Camino routes are not perfectly, but very well marked. So that at every point that you walk out and, do I go that way or this way? It's not always super obvious, but if you look, there's a yellow arrow somewhere that tells you this way and not that way. And so the point is,
And when in doubt, trust the yellow arrows and not all trails.
right.
All trails will lie to you.
But in any case, the point is, in that circumstance where the basic point is, look, you can pick your own speed because you're not depending on somebody else to navigate for you. It does work out properly. And people did have very different preferences for whether or not to, build up more debt over fewer hours or less debt over more hours. I think it's sort of an area under the curve kind of a question. But for me, the hours of recovery at the end were more precious than the managing the suffering on the trail, which I think is why there's no bandwidth left over when you get where you're going. You take care of basic needs and nothing else gets done because you are recovering in every sense. You are, you've been mentally focused on, where's the trail and where do I go? And, keeping your feet going one after the other and dealing with all of the little pains and things that dog you day after day.
Yeah, focusing enough on the pain to make sure that it's not important, and then putting it out of your mind. Putting pain out of your mind, if you have assessed and know to reassess with some regularity, is that important? Do I need to tend to it? But the act of saying, no, sorry, body, like I get it, you're yelling at me in some regard, but we're just going to proceed here, is itself an energetic act.
It is, and the rule I made for myself, and which I think it would be a general rule for how to do this, is pain is fine, damage is not. If you do damage, then you're basically adding to a debt that you're going to have to pay at some point. If you suffer and then you get off the trail and stop suffering and then you start suffering again the next morning, that's sustainable, but you have to get used to it. So there's something about much of the capacity that clearly grew radically over the course of the hike was not really a capacity what your body is capable of. It's sort of what you're capable of enduring, which I found interesting. And then this equilibrium thing, equilibrium is, I think, one of the most powerful concepts you can understand. If it's actually, I'm tempted to say it's one of the most important concepts in complex systems, but really it's equally important in simple systems, right? It's a very powerful lens with which to look at processes.
Yeah, you have manifestations in complex systems like homeostasis, but homeostasis is a specific case of equilibrium.
Right, and the equilibrium does not require a living world.
Right.
If you put a hose in a bucket, the bucket will be out of equilibrium, building up water until you get to the point at which it can't hold any more water. And then the amount of water flowing out of the bucket is identical to the amount of water flowing into the bucket inherently.
Right. Or gas diffusing across a semi-permeable barrier and reaching a steady state equilibrium.
Right. Yep. So anyway, I thought all of those were sort of interesting discoveries, and they changed how I would approach any such activity in the future. So anyway, I will.
Do you want to say more about that?
Well, I wish that on day one I had been tracking equilibrium, and the idea is what happened on day one. Day one was hard, and
what would you track? What are the indicators of equilibrium that you would be tracking?
The indicators are morning of day two. How do you feel relative to morning of day one?
That's still, how do you feel is pretty vague.
Yeah, except that the body is very good at monitoring details. And all I can say is that on a day-to-day level, something kicked in. I think it kicked in about the evening of day 4, and then I lost it because I got sick and I started losing ground against the equilibrium. And then, it must have been day 8. Matt and I both, almost at the same moment, went from physically being able to descend any of the hills that we were confronting. Suddenly my knee flared up, and he had leg issues too. And actually, when Chris joined us, he reports that on that first day, at the end of the first day, in the last 2 miles or so, that Matt and I were like going down hills backwards to avoid, inflaming the stuff that had gotten bad.
Still on foot, though. Still under full load.
Still on foot, still under full load.
Backwards.
But, each time something like that happened, a setback, it was like, well, okay, now, how much ground did I lose against equilibrium now, and where am I going to get it? And it was those periods in between the hikes in which you regain and you get back to a place where it's like, yes, I'm suffering every day. I'm in pain, but it's working and it's not getting worse. Right. So I think that that's a general approach. I don't know. I'm interested to talk to people who, suffer for a living, because maybe this is something that they have a take on. I'm sure it is, actually.